My name is Wika. I will be the presenter for the Sudo team today. And uh, I assume that my slide is already on the screen right now. And before I begin with the presentation, I would like to make a brief disclaimer that our goal in presenting this design and also in following this competition back then was really we didn't intend to introduce a very new novel technology that is super advanced, but rather we would want to show that there are fields or sectors, even in the water and sanitation sector, that still needs focus. And in our context, in the Suto team context, we're choosing the tourism field. And I would like to start this presentation by saying that uh, calling upon the topic of this webinar, that the future is sustainable. It is inevitable, and we need to be able to make a system, and it is that is beyond a jargon. We want to make a sustainable system that is beyond a jargon, and to do that, our take on our solution for a sustainable future is to strengthen the present and to build a resilient system. And in our context, it is for tourism. And so, if you would imagine, when the tourism destination, we have a lot of them, and one of them are not one of them, but most of the times we are keen to go to a natural tourism destination, such as forest and beach, and more often than not, we're also inclined to go where there are not so many crowd around, right? And sometimes that means we need to go to very far away places, sometimes even to not so connected areas, because the wave is probably better, the view is probably better. But since it's far away from the crowd, then it is in a remote area, right? And more often than not, in remote tourism areas, there are lack of sustainable toilet facilities, and can lead to negative impacts on the environment and the local communities. If you would think about it, since it's far away and is probably not connected to the main city system, then they will have to fend for themselves. They will have to find local water sources that is not from the city water pipelines, and they will have to manage on their wastewater discharge somehow. And this, when they're looking for a local water source, for example, then they will have to also uh, deal with it, the water source, with the locals. And more often than not, also, they will have to negotiate, or they will have to co-live with the locals. And this is because being remote means that they are being off the grid. So just like what I told you, they are not connected to the city plans. They are not connected to the city networks. And sometimes even not only that they're not connected to the basic services such as water system and wastewater system, they're also disconnected from the primary road network. And why it is important, other than the access to the location itself, it will we can see it later on the technology that we use. But SNP, it's about decentralized sanitation, and they will still need desludging. And that's why being disconnected from a primary road network is also a problem, even if we have on-site sanitation. Now, what are our hurdle then? First of all, if we don't manage our waste, be it solid waste, be it wastewater, then we're going to pollute our local pristine tourism area, right? And we don't want that to happen, because then when waste goes unmanaged, then we will experience environmental quality degradation. The water is polluted, the air is probably also polluted, and more importantly, the view or the location is no longer the pristine location that we found or that we imagined it was before. And as I also already told you briefly, that when we are handling a group of tourists, then you will probably not going to think of only there are places where they only accept like 10 tourists maximum a day, but for in the case study, for example, like in Indonesia or in places where for example the beach is up to the locals to manage, or the forest is up to the locals to manage, then they will have to manage their own water sources. And even for in big corporation, when they want to make a resort, then they will also have to go to local water source. And if the distribution of this water source is imbalanced, then they will have conflict of interest, because then we'll have to make sure that the locals get their fair share, but we will also have to make sure that the tourist destination gets the water that they need to fulfill the tourism sector needs, right? And that's only the present. This is no longer this is not yet talking about the future climate uncertainties. Whether will there be more rains, will there be less rain, how about the drought, how about seawater level, what fauna or flora will be available or will not be available. And this is what we have in mind when we are designing this system. And therefore, our solution to this hurdle, to these problems that we thought, was basically those things. The first one being strengthening the existing system, because we will have to make sure that we see and we study what existing system is in the area, and also how can we make the tourism location, or the location and all the people that are within it, the community that are within it, to be more resilient toward the future. And if you can see here, the strengthening the existing system, we have to take a look at for at the sanitation surface chain, which will cover all the chain of sanitation in that is available. And we also use several technology to make sure that even if we need a lot of water, then we can try to fulfill that amount of water in the less exploitative possible way. And by doing it, we also want to make a design that is socially and culturally inclusive, so that we can cater not only one group, which is the tourist, but we can also taking into account uh, gender and also age, and also what kind of people, or for example, is it family, or are you, uh, for example, the disabled. We want to make those included. Of course, it's not going to be in a very advanced way, but we will have to make sure that even if it's just a toilet, then it will cater to their needs also. And that is why when we're trying to think of what are the features of our sustainable toilet, then there are three things that we wanted to make sure that that it will be in the design. The first one being that we will have to recycle our water in order to minimize wastewater discharge. Technology is advanced. You can always treat it, but will it be better that if we can reduce the waste altogether? And then the second one being, since it's off the grid area, how can we optimize it specifically for off the grid areas? So we keep it in mind, even though we have the options to probably connect to the grid, but how can we try to optimize it even if it's off the grid? And our answer to that being it being solar powered and also having multiple or alternative water sources. And the third one being incorporate local wisdom. So this is why I told you in the disclaimer at the beginning that this is not our proposal to this technology, very advanced, very new that we made, but this is about our take on our perspective on how we solve it. And that is why SUTO comes. So so SUTO stands for Sustainable Toilet, and this is our envision. This is how we envision sustainable toilet. And our team is for this competition consists of 4 people. We have Jane, Oscar, Senna, and myself. And as you can see, we are a multidisciplinary background. with 3 of us being sanitary engineer. So we have a bit of the base for the water and sanitation, and we have also the architecture to give an insight for especially on the designs and how we can make a flow so that even our design that have this massive a lot of technology can still fit and still good to the eye. And the context for our technology is in Nias, specifically in Soraka Beach. Is a tourism destination, specifically for surfing, and it is renowned in a world-class surfer destination because there are multiple international surfing competition that is held there. And why we made the Soraka Beach our context or our case study, we see that even in 2025, in Soraka Beach alone, they will have up to 400 visitors daily, and doubled in the weekends. And in their peak hours, the water need will be increasing from the current water needs up to even 7,000 liter per day. And since since the water needs and water use is increased, then of course the wastewater volume will also increase. Where we calculated it can be up to 500 liter per hour on the peak hours. So thinking about that, we try to come up with a design where we can that is the design that is easily replicated, even if it's not only in the Soraka Beach, probably in other beaches in Indonesia or the world, but it is in a way that we are using technologies and also good architectural design, and we want to try to promote that. As you can see, I want to present. I want to show you three main things. The first one being the clean water system. The second one is the interface and how we do the water reuse, and the third one is the water system. For the clean water system, what we want to promote is that how about in every toilet possible, we try to make a rainwater harvesting system, so that other than the locally available water source, we also cater for alternative water source. So for example, even if we can't connect to the local water supplier, then we can probably try to connect to a groundwater system, or other than that, we can try to also make a rainwater harvesting system that is, as I say, scientific. From the water, from the precipitation data throughout the years, then we can calculate the catchment, and also how much of the water tank that we need for the overall volume. And if done properly with NIAS context, which is not very wet, it is actually pretty dry. Even with that, if we are using the local hydrological data, we can, using rainwater harvesting, we can collect up and fulfill up to 32% of total clean water needs for 2025. And then the second one that we want to promote with using the system is how we change the toilet interface, or the toilet, the toilet that is used in the toilet, and how we can try to encourage more on water reuse system, so that not in a very advanced way, just a very conventional or very simple, such as how you use the toilet that have the hand washing system and the flushing system all together. And then how about we also use water reuse for flushing, which we do from the gray water system, and we filter it. And then the third one being, how about we use a UDT toilet, or the urine diversion toilet, and then we make a preliminary treatment such as the UV treatment, and also a bit of filter for the urine, using urine as a fertilizer, and then the locals can make use of that. And then the third one and the last one being the wastewater system. And since it's an off-the-grid system, then we opt for a non-sewer sanitation, which we focus on technologies that yield the minimum amount of fecal sludge. And here, as you can see, we use anaerobic systems because they yield the least amount of total solid in the effluent and also in the sludge, so that we can reduce the amount of the desludging that is needed. And then the second one being that we want to also try to integrate a solution for other problem, and this one being solid waste problem. And that's why for the fecal sludge treatment, we also wanted to have it and mix it with solid waste and food traceable solid waste, since it is also a problem in tourism area, bio waste. And we are using anaerobic digester for that, so that we can use the anaerobic system and make it into a valuable energy. And then the third one being functional and aesthetical added value. And that's why we are using constructed wetland, because then we can make it just as if it's a garden for the constructed treatment wetland. That's why we are trying to make this technology nothing new, but we want to tell you that this is possible for a sustainable toilet. And this is combined or being binded by the architectural concept, because we don't want these very sustainable technologies, but it doesn't look nice. And it's also a tourism destination. And we want to make it as functional as possible, but aesthetically pleasing as possible. And that's why for the solar powered, we try to also incorporate it in a design for the roofing. We want to make a design that is electrically efficient, a lot of open spaces, and using solar power alone, we can also make an added value from the surplus of electricity up to and where it is sold, it can yield a profit up to 35 million yearly. And that is all. So thank you for considering the sustainable options. Nothing new from our technology, but we want to promote that being sustainable doesn't always mean being boring, and that there are places that needs our attention for sustainable toilets, such as the off-the-grid tourism. Let's work toward a cleaner future, one flush at a time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wicca, for that amazing presentation. Yes, I learned a lot. And yes, it doesn't have to be boring. I agree with you. Please, participants, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, or if you have any questions for Wicca, please leave them in the chat box or keep them in mind, write them down somewhere. So yeah, we're going to move to the next team. We have the IoT team. So please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the time. Now, we come from the IoT team, Outsource Innovation Green Toilet based on IoT. Now, before we get into the topics takeaway, we need to explain regarding the section of this presentation itself. Now, there are three sections of this presentation, that is the problem, the solution, and the aesthetic. Now, straight to the problem. What is the main problem of sanitation in Indonesia, especially in the case of Lampung in this one? Now, the main problem is Indonesia is in the second place of country with open defecation behavior. This means there are still a lot of people that choose to do defecation with open behavior instead of using the proper toilet. And the amount of sanitation in Indonesia itself is actually lacking, and the need of sanitation itself is actually increasing each and every year, especially sanitation at tourists, which is used by domestic and foreign tourists abroad. Now, we have to keep in mind that a few years ago, there is a pandemic that caused lack in tourism in Indonesia. So there is a downward trend regarding tourism. But since the restriction of pandemic itself is mostly have been lifted by the government of Indonesia, nowadays we need a lot more sanitation than ever, since there's a lot more tourism nowadays than even before pandemic. Now, we have to remember the cause of all of that problem. Now, the cause itself, there are basically two causes. That is, the sanitation system in Indonesia itself is still limited, and the quantity itself is still inadequate, which can be seen by the unavailability of sufficient quantities of sanitation in tourist spots. This includes some of the spots which is in Lampung Elephant Park with which we will talk about later. And the second cause of this is actually the existing toilets or sanitation itself is still dirty and become breeding ground for disease. Now we need to keep in mind that there are 17 sustainable development goals, and the most correlated one with sanitation is actually the sixth one, which is clean water sanitation. But sanitation itself doesn't have to only correlate with the sixth one. It can also relate to affordable and clean energy. It can also relate to decent work and economic growth, especially in tourism. It can also relate to zero hunger, no poverty, and quality education. And of course, it also relate to good health and well-being, as we mentioned before, that uh, not so good sanitation or dirty sanitation can cause a lot of disease and breeding grounds for bacteria. So if we have proper sanitation, we can increase the good health and well-being in a certain place or certain country or certain region. Now, how do we bridge the gap? Now, in bridging the gap, we have to keep in mind that there is a general solution and there is a specific solution. Now, the first is the solution that is general, based on the touchless innovation green toilet based on IoT. Now, the design of the toilet itself mainly has three components. The first component is the touchless component. Since a lot of toilets nowadays uses button, it is using basically a touch-based toilet. Now, a touch-based toilet onto itself is actually good, but it still is a breeding ground for bacteria, since touch is one of the ways that bacteria can spread to another person or another staff. Now, by using touchless technology that is using sensoric technology or remote technology that based on sensor, we can limit the touch, and hence we can limit the bacteria spreading in the toilet. Now, the second design is a tissue box that can be accessed using sensoric touch as well, or using a remote, or a soft box. So this is depending upon the place and the culture of the place, because in Indonesia there are two ways to use that is using tissue box or using a soft box. Now, the third one is the toilet design features a squatting position for the users to use. Now, why is the squatting position is important? There are a lot of research regarding squatting position is good for the health and beneficial in regards to toilet, since it is since before the invention of the toilet, humans usually defecate using squatting position instead of sitting position. So sitting position is actually new in this realm of technology. Now, by using sitting position that is also has squatting position incorporated to it, we can give the users comfortability as well in using the toilet, since not all users are comfortable in using squatting position toilet. Now, the next solution is regarding the management itself. There are fecal sludge management. That using wet oxidation, that is using high pressure management to convert excrement into vapor during fecal refuse processing, hence reducing fecal aromas and increasing comfort for the users. This improves the sanitation and user satisfaction by reducing odors during frequent use, especially during high users numbers. This is especially true in tourism area, since public toilet in tourism area is usually crowded, and in fact, a lot of public toilet in tourism area is usually cannot be able to be used because there are a lot of people that using it at the same time. Now, this method of wet oxidation ensures clean and hygienic toilets for more pleasant experience in public toilet especially. Now, the urine management itself, we have two stages in converting urine into energy. The first one is using a small urinal hydrogen plant that is located near the bottom area that is receiving the water from urine. And in using the urine potential energy in turning it into energy. Now, we need to remember that urinal hydroturbine itself, it's not really producing a lot of energy since the quantity itself is little. So there are second stages, that is microbial electrolysis cell, which basically change the urine into energy. This is the same as well as using food waste into energy as well. So this is basically the same process as that. Now, the third section that we need to remember is basically the aesthetic part of the toilet. Now, the previous part, we talk about the general the general solution of toilet. Since they are general and specific, the aesthetic is actually the specific part of the toilet itself. Now, before we get into the aesthetic, we have to remember why is location is important. Location is basically the location of an area is indicative of its resource, its local cultural heritage, and also its theme or thematic places in there. So if we do not have any context of location, then we cannot have any specification of the design itself, since a design for a toilet or any interior design for that matter needing a kind of context of that area, since everyone needed different design and everyone has their own preference. Now, in the location that is being exampled right here is Lampung Elephant Park, which is located in Lampung. Since it is Elephant Park, the design itself is basically modeled after elephant, which is the uniqueness and the identity of the park itself. Oh yeah, and we have to remember that the position of the toilet itself is as a stand-alone building, so it's not a part of any building. It is a stand-alone building. Now, the toilet plan for this is actually divided into four basic rooms, four basic main rooms. That is the woman restroom, the men's restroom, and two disabled lavatories. Now, the woman's restroom itself has 4 toilet cubicles and 4 basins, while the men's restroom has 2 toilet cubicles, 3 urinals, and 4 sinks. The interior design itself is modeled after the elephant, as we mentioned before. We can see here that we implement elephant imagery into the toilet and also into the sinks, so that people can use the faucet and see that the design is resemble the identity of the place and it is becoming interesting to the people. The barriers for the urinator itself is also modeled after elephant. And we also, since we are IoT or in Internet of Things, instead of using tangible payment, that is using money that is either a coin or a paper coin or paper money, we use cashless payment that is used to be scanned by a QR code. This is to limit touch, as we mentioned before, as touch is basically one of the ways for bacteria is to spread. Now here is the picture of the area of the toilet in the context of Lampung Elephant Park, and the last picture is referencing the picture of the plumbing itself of the toilet. Now this video is without any audio, so I'm going to narrate a few things regarding this toilet. Now this is the basic design of the toilet itself. It also has sink incorporated into the toilet. Now, why we do put sink? We put sink into right beside the toilet. This is important because the water from the sink itself is actually still can be used to flushing the toilet. So the water itself, it's not going to be waste immediately. This is why we put sink into the toilet design. Now, the second design is actually the urinator design itself, which also has 11 imagery into it. And the third one is actually the plumbing, the detail of the plumbing itself. There are three main component plumbing in this. The first one is the orange color, that is for the black water. The blue one is basically the clean water, and the yellow one is for the gray water. So the system of the plumbing itself has 3 pipes and 3 separate plumbing system. Maybe that's all that I can present today as a delegation of IoT team. Thank you so much for the time. Here are our contacts.
Thank you so much, David, for that very in-depth presentation. Again, I have so many questions, but I'm going to save them for the end. If anybody has questions, please remember to make note of them in your mind or on a piece of paper or in the chat. Yes, so thank you, David. And we're going to move on to the last team, the Wojo team. So yes, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Raisa. On this session, I will represent my team to present the results of our advanced toilet design, which name is Wojo. Wojo is a toilet for public toilet for malls. Okay. Before design, we made observation to 7 different malls in Yogyakarta, one of the big city in Indonesia, as well as where we live today. There, we observed the toilet in each mall to find out the problems, innovation that exist in the mall toilets, in order to be our reference for designing our toilet later. Not just direct observation, we also made questionnaire to find out the problems that commonly occur in the mall toilet more broadly. Okay. From the results of observation and questionnaire distribute, we found the result that we make the background as follows. Shopping centers are often less aware of the importance of public facilities, especially toilets. Toilets that should be clean and suitable for public use. In some places at this time seems dirty and make people didn't want to use public toilets. From the above problem, based from the problems, we want to make a toilet that is multifunctional, clean, practical, elegant, has a form that does not yet exist in the market, suitable for placing in the public place, and can reach all the circles. Because cleanliness is a major factor to be met for a public toilet. Next. Before into the final design, we made some several alternative design and also the selection for first design. So, and then until finally found the final design as follow in the from 3D rendering. So this is our 3D rendering. Next, here's the cycle of filters that exist in our toilets, such as Sanitation, tornado flush, UV tech, and also sensors. Sanitation, how it works. Ceramic glass coats the toilet with a microscopic surface that is smaller than the waste particles, so there is no place for the waste to rest. Tornado flush, powerful streams of water compress and rotate 360 degrees, washing away each part with strong water pressure. UV tech, consisting of ultraviolet light neutralize bacteria and start a photocatalytic process that breaks down microscopic waste particles operating once every 8 hours. Sensor, there is a lid that automatically opens and closes when the toilet is approached and left. This sensor is also located in the flush. Okay, here's a picture of our product use system and also an overview of the size of this toilet design. In the waste treatment system, we choose to use the UOS system, which is a refinement of the AOP system in terms of design, quality of equipment, instrument, and yeah. For a brief description of the AOP system itself, AOP is a chemical treatment design for organic removal water in removal material in water and wastewater with the process oxidation utilizing hydroxyl radicals. For the system works, the results of solid and liquid stool will be drained into the septic tank, then processed to the UOS treatment system. From the outlet, the waste is filtered in the filter bag so that there are no particles whose size is above 20 microns, because it causes interfere with the oxidation process. After that, the waste is injected with the first element, hydrogen peroxide, through the static mixer. Then the waste flows into the oxidation reactor. At this stage, the waste will circulate and then meet the ozone and UV reactor. Once well oxidized, the waste will flow into the holding tank. To make maximum result, filtered waste again using a carbon filter. Then get clean water that can be used to flush toilets or watering plants. This is our poster design of our toilet. Maybe enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Wow, we've had 3 great presentations. So many great ideas, so many just practical ways to serve people, but also, you know, innovative ideas for the future. So very aware that these designs are based, context-based. So some of the people joining today may not be able to apply these designs to their specific context, but I still think it's a good idea, and it's good to hear what people are thinking of. And it's also great that we have like architects and product design students here to really come from their perspective of what makes like a good product. I feel like sometimes in the sanitation sector, it's like engineers designing these things that don't really pay that much attention to user friendliness. So I was happy to see these things portrayed in the presentations. So it's question time. I know we're a little bit over time, but it's okay. If you feel comfortable staying an extra 10 minutes for the Q&A, that's fine, but no pressure at all. So question time, we have some questions in the chat box. Let's see. Okay, so Wicca, we have one question for you from our colleague in Côte d'Ivoire. And they ask, thanks Wicca for this great presentation. I would like to know if this technology considers women's menstrual cycles.
Thank you very much for the question. Cooley. I really wanted to call you by your name, really. Sorry if that's wrong, or if I really horribly say that. And yes, actually, I cannot incorporate it in such a short presentation, but we do have several inclusive designs for gender-based inclusive design. For example, the first one being that we have a gender-neutral toilets. It is located. It can be access. It is located in each of the building of the toilet building, but rather than going inside of the building, you can access it from outside. And originally, we actually do that not only for the gender universal access toilet, but we do it actually for the disabled people. So we have two toilet for outside. The first one specifically for the disabled, because sometimes the caretaker of the disabled person cannot always be of the same gender as the person that is disabled. Sometimes disabled is an old male, but the caretaker is female, or the opposite is also true. So we want to make sure that even if they're being taken care of, they can have a same access to the toilet. And as for the women's menstrual cycles, yes, we actually also incorporated in the toilet. So in the toilet building, specifically for the women toilet, there's a menstrual pad dispenser inside of it. And we actually also wanted to make sure that we also give uh, alternatives, and it can be also some sort of a promotion, like if it's sponsored, for if you will. So we don't only think about, oh, we need a menstrual pad there, but we want to make sure that also, if it's possible, that the menstrual pad is also sustainable. For example, that it is biodegradable, or using cup rather than menstrual pad. So yeah, we do think of that, and many more, but I couldn't really incorporate it in the presentation. And thank you for asking, so that I have an opportunity to explain more.
Yes, thanks for the answer. So Kuli, I believe it's Kuli Bali. Hey, sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. Also asks, can the cost of these toilets be supported by the poor population? These populations are the most confronted by wash problems. So I guess this question is to everyone. How do you factor in like the poor population using these toilets? Like what was the thinking behind that? Was there thinking behind that? Or tell us about your thoughts on this question. So I'll just repeat it. Can the cost of these toilets be supported by the poor population? These populations are the most confronted with wash problems. What's your take on that? Okay, so alternative question. So I understand that all of you are students, so that's just to make that clear to everyone. They are not officially working in the sector yet, but I'm curious to know what's taught in your curriculum, in your courses about this thing. So when you are thinking about product design, when it comes to like the cost of everything, what are you taught about the cost and like where the money comes from, etc., etc.? So can you give any insight on this, perhaps? Yeah, go please.
Yeah, I answered it, but in the chat, because I thought you were going to go to the next question for David. But yeah, basically for this question, we also try to think about the feasibility of it being built actually in actual case. So we want for this design specifically, we can try to propose it to the local government as an option to for design to build in their area. And as for and in that context, then the fee or for the budget will come from the local government. And how we sell it is not only for the construction cost, but we will also try to sell for the surplus that is being that can be received by the design from the solar panel, and as specifically for poor population, then we can try to press more on the materials, and it's still possible, especially for because in our design the most expensive is the solar panels, that's for sure, but we can try to encourage still the use of it, and being the budget coming from the local government or NGO that is or local company that wants to build this toilet in their resort, for example, and we even if it's expensive for the solar panel, that but we can also try to opt for that the surplus of the electricity can pay for that expensive investment in the initial investment.
Okay, yeah, that's clear. That's clear. Anyone else want to add, or can I go to the next question? Okay, so the next question is for David. What's the next step? I mean, what are you planning to do with black water, gray water, etc.?
Okay, thank you so much for the question, Kulibali. I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation. Now, this is an important question that needs to be addressed because I forgot to address it in the PowerPoint. So regarding the black water itself, now the black water itself is divided into two. That is toilet, the toilet itself and the urinator. Now the toilet water itself is basically going to be turned into energy by using wet oxidation, while the the urine that is from urinator is going to be used for microbial cell. Now, regarding the gray water itself, since gray water uh, isn't doesn't need to be thrown off as easy as that, it can be reused again, and we just need to have the proper treatment for that. So we actually propose regarding the gray water to reuse that for just like the sink that is incorporated into the toilet. The sink itself can actually be used as a flushing water. Now the gray water itself can be used as that as well. Now maybe I hope that will clear up some things regarding the question. Thank you so much for the questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from anyone? We'll wait about 5 minutes, but until then, I have a question. So I'm curious to know, in your like product design, when you're thinking about how a toilet can serve people, do you factor in like actually spending time with the population you're trying to serve, to see what they need, to see what they want? Because I know sometimes we have designs and we just assume like, oh, this would work here, this would work here, but I was in South Africa a few years ago, and I was talking to someone who actually, so before a product is implemented, they survey the local community to see what will work, what will not work, and then they get the data from that, and then they like implement, they make changes or not to the design, and then they roll it out. So would that be something that you could consider when you're making designs, or when you're thinking about how to provide a service to people? I know you mentioned, David, I know you mentioned in your toilet you had the squatting option as well, which was, yeah, because you're factoring in how different people use toilets. But I guess my question is question/suggestion, and how would you actually speak with people to know what they actually need?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Yes, I would like to very much address that. Yes, it is very important to actually ask what the people want. Since I'm actually bachelor degree in urban planning, one of the studies that one of the curriculum that we had is community engagement. And in community engagement, it is important to do participatory planning. That is a planning that is based on what the needs of the people, based on what they want. So it is basically a bottom-up planning. So instead of top-down, because a lot of yes, I pretty much agree, because a lot of times we often think of ourselves as someone who knows better than most people. So we like to assume that we have the better knowledge and we have the perfect implementation, even though the people that we try to help itself doesn't want that implementation in reality. That's why it is important to address that, to talk to the people, to survey the people before we have the sign itself. Maybe that's regarding that question.
Wicca, do you have anything to add? Thank you, David.
Probably I for the basis I agree with how David do it, and especially for Suto context, the reason why we use the Sorake Beach in Nias as our study case is because two of our team members, Oscar and Jane, are both from Nias, and they both visited the beach a lot, and they're the kind of people who ask around a lot about the things that they're interested in, that being architecture and water and sanitation. And that's why we came up with this problem in the first place. But in the basis, I agree hopefully with David that a bottom-up approach and participatory approach is a better approach for sanitation. In this case, probably public toilet, but also for the basic toilet, it is also very much needed.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, it seems that we've reached the end of our webinar. Does anyone have any last remarks, anything to add before we close?
Can I add something?
Of course, Regan, I saw your face like, girl, talk.
Yeah. Okay, and also, Raisa, do you want to add something? Maybe you want to add something, or enough? It's clear?
Maybe enough.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I want to add something for Kolibali questions, because he said like, is it this toilet for like poor people, something like that? What is it? Yeah, for the cost, right? Yeah. Actually, because this competition was held in Indonesia, so we asked the participants and all the winners this competition. The title is Advanced Toilets, something like that. Yeah, our goal is to make people more interested in toilets, because many people not really interested when we talk about toilet. So me and Pak Budi and Asmi and all in Indonesia, FSMA Indonesia team, so we make competitions, and we make the title like to build the advanced toilet, and also with the wastewater treatment, to make many and more people interested in toilets, for example, especially for young people like these winners. That's maybe that's why all the winners designed the advanced toilet, something like that. Yeah, that's for me, Michaela.
Yes. So I hope that's clear to everyone. Yes. It was a toilet competition to see advanced. It was context based, as I said, but it was very, very much context based. So some of the things won't be applicable in other situations, but it's great to see. We should still celebrate seeing people being interested in sanitation. And so, yeah, we're very grateful to have, very grateful to the Indonesia team, Rugun, Pak Budi, for organizing this brilliant event, for introducing us to these brilliant young people. And we truly wish you the best with your studies. And yeah, let's continue to keep in contact. Yes, and thank you to everyone who joined today. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I wish you a pleasant day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And yeah, stay tuned for our next FSMA Spotlight. So we're taking a break in August, just so everyone's aware. So our next FSMA Spotlights will be in September. So stay tuned for that. In August, there's a big focus on Stockholm World Water Week. So we don't want to do stuff at the same time they're doing stuff. So yeah, we also have a session at Stockholm World Water Week. So please tune in for that. We will be promoting that very soon. But yeah, thank you everyone. Take care. Yeah, bye-bye.